Hi there, a busy week in the speed shop this week, just getting the bikes ready for the ABR festival, taking a fleet of postie bikes up there for people to be taken around the off-road track. There's a 30 kilometre off-road track that people can go around on, so just getting the bikes prepped for that. A few new tyres and just a bit of a check over, a few needed MOTs. Big announcement that Itchy Boots is going to be up at ABR, so that's a real coup for the guys there. So promises to be a great festival, and the fact that you can ride your own bike around an off-road track all day is absolutely ideal. Been helped this week by a lady called Anika, who didn't want to be on camera. I was going to interview her about her bike, but she's travelling from Holland on a Honda CT110 and been up to Scotland, Wales, down to Cornwall, and just popped in to see me. And in return for a few new tyres and some brake shoes on a front brake, she did me a bit of painting on the speed shop wall. So yeah, wishing her well on her onward adventures. Interestingly, her bike is still owned by a Dutch guy called Niels, who rode it back from Australia. So yeah, fairly well-travelled machine that she is on, and it still continues to look after us. It ran really nicely, actually. Also, earlier this week I got back from Ireland, took a group round Ireland. We did an 8-day trip into Fishguard into Rosslare, and all the way around the Wild Atlantic Way, up into Northern Ireland, then out of Belfast into Liverpool on the overnight ferry. A big group of people, but run it as a sort of semi-self-guided thing, so it breaks down into smaller groups dependent on bike size or riding style. We've got everything from GS 1200s down to Honda C125s, CRF 300L, a couple of W650 Kawasaki's, an old V7 Guzzi, Africa Twins. I was on the Motor Marini, so a little bit of everything. But I've got to say, Ireland is such a spectacular place to ride a motorcycle. We're incredibly lucky with the weather. It couldn't have been any better, really. Only a little bit of drizzle on the last day, but riding those roads, I mean, there's so quiet in parts of it. We did the Ring of Kerry, the Kerry Highlands, which is a real favourite of mine, Dingle Peninsula, Mizzin and Malinhead, which are the most southerly and most northerly points on the island, Connor Pass, Healy Pass, Giants Causeway, County Antrim Coast. So just some epic riding. I've got hours of footage I need to sit down and edit, and probably will do an Ireland special on that, but just wanted to throw in a bit of footage just to show the quality of the riding. It's a very easy place to travel, Ireland, very friendly, people are great, the food's actually really excellent, one of the best elements or parts of it. And the roads are busy around the cities, as all places are, but out in the country it's really quiet, really almost remote in that southwest and north west corners of the coastal run. So we in many ways followed the Wild Atlantic Way, but you can't do all of it because there's lots of offshoots and things like that. But we did about probably 1,800 miles all up, just under 200 miles per day. So yeah, nice mix, hotel, camping, bunkhouse, and then came back with a bag full of laundry and getting ready for the ABR festival. Just on this week's episode, I've got the first ride of the Sur Ron Ultra Bee. Also, a little review on the panniers that I used on the Motor Marini, and also a little bit on the GS310, which I've got a few tasty bits to bolt onto it. And that's about your lot, really. Next episode will be from the ABR Festival, hopefully bump into some old familiar faces, take a few laps of the off-road circuit, and yeah, just see the state of the adventure market from what is going to be the biggest adventure show in the UK. So, yeah, hope everyone's well. Have a great weekend. Cheers. Okay, just out on the Ultra Bee, first ride of it. I've not had a chance to ride it until now, so just going to take it out, quick little loop, off to an ABR festival later, so I haven't got long. Fully charged, to be honest, I've only done about 2-3 miles, and it's already dropped to 90% from 98, so I've got to be honest, I've already got a bit of range anxiety. That aside, it is really easy, really light, 89 kilos, equivalent of 12.5 kilowatts, which is about 17 brake horsepower. The figure that startled me when I looked through the specs of the day was that it's got, wait a minute, what do I do? Ready, I've got to hit the ready button. Is that it's got 440 newton meters of torque, which is 4 times torque, 3.5 times more than a GS 1200, which I find a little bit hard to believe. I mean, it has got a lot of torque, but it seems a little bit excessive. Just going to do a few trails, so I'm looking at this from a trail perspective, not an enduro perspective. You know, for me, if this does a 50-mile range, it's actually not too bad. First trail just coming up, a little bit of a, you know, a tricky climb. I've got it in drive mode. I'm going up. See how this. Oh my word! Oh, light front end, got fully adjustable suspension. So they just need softening up a little bit wobbly. Very easy to modulate the power coming up here. Actually, I was a bit surprised. I read reports that it was a bit snatchy or rough, but no, that's pretty easy, that, to keep traction. Just sit down. I mean, it is very light. That's the thing you notice. It's very light, and the fact that you haven't got the clutch means you haven't got to focus on that element of it. You know, you would come up there on a CRF 300 or a Himalayan. Would it be easier or harder? It'd be different. I don't think I want to say, really. So this type of riding along this narrow track is really easy. That throttle response is nice. It really does feel like I'm just on a big mountain bike. I would say it's very novice friendly. That's what I would say about it. You haven't got that mass to move around that you've got on a bigger bike or a engined bike. You haven't got to worry about the clutch along here. I mean, it's so easy, like there, just have to dab a foot. It's low. It's a relatively low seat height. I'm not entirely sure what the spec is, but it's 5'10" at. Well, I'm 5'10". It's easily manageable. I think you go down to about 5'8", 5'7", for it still to be nicely manageable. Okay, we've got a good standing position. You naturally wanted to go for a gear change. I think that's the difference. I've got a front brake on my right lever, traditional, and then the back brake is on the bars. Very sharp brakes on it. I am impressed with the components and things on this bike. It does feel good quality. It actually feels good quality and good value at 6,700. I'm really impressed with the detail of it and just the way it's been executed. You can tell it's not been built by a motorcycle builder, if that makes sense. Okay, that little climb there cost me 3% of my battery charge. So from that road where I just set off, that was 3%. Whatever that equates to in terms of fun, but it's different, isn't it? It's a brave new world. You know, my immediate thought is you could forgo some of the lightness in exchange for more range, and I think there is another Sur Ron in the range that does offer that. So for me, I would take another 20 kilos on the bike to add another 60 miles to the range, or 50 miles or whatever, and I think that would be that would be the direction I'd like it to go in. But you can, you know, with these kind of tyres, in fairness, they've only done 260 bikes, they've done 260 miles, and they're quite well worn, so they're not going to last forever. It's a 19 rear and a 19 front. Wow, brave new world. We'll crack on, see what more I discover, see how much range I've got. But it's exciting, it is exciting. So I've got 3 ride modes. I've got drive, sport and eco. Eco does about 35 miles an hour, and I think I would say that's where they've got the 90-mile claim top range. You know, looking at it already, I don't think you're going to get anywhere near 90 miles, and I saw there was a YouTube video where he was aiming to get 30 miles. And I guess if you're riding in sport mode on trails, on fast woodland trails, which he was, then 90 miles, 30 miles seems about right. If you could get 60 miles at a more gentle pace on trails, that, you know, to me that would be okay. It would stop you exploring, and it would stop a lot of spontaneity that you get with a traditional petrol engine bike.
and it would mean that you've probably got to van the bike to places to ride it or to explore. But 60 miles is a good morning's ride. 30 miles is, you know, is useless. So that's in eco mode, very soft throttle. There's not a lot of that. Oh, there's a bit of acceleration, you know, that accelerates. But yeah, that's probably enough for a novice rider. Eco mode is actually nice and docile, nice and manageable, and it's what's going to give you the best range. So if you weren't after a high performance ride on the bike and you were just wanting to enjoy the scenery and do it with a bit more silence, then eco mode is one for you. I can't say it's completely silent. There's still a lot of chain noise and whirring going on, so it's not like you're passing by in complete silence. %85 charge. It does really drop. I'm surprised how fast it does drop, really. I thought we'd probably use 6 or 7% by now, but we're more like 13%. If you're out on a petrol powered bike and you filled up before you left off, you wouldn't even given a thought to the fuel gauge by now. You wouldn't even have contemplated what the range is like. I think it's going to take a bit of getting used to until you feel comfortable with it, because obviously the issue with this is you can't easily regenerate it. I'm not carrying the charger because that's a heavy, bulky item that does go under the seat but takes up a lot of space, and you know, you kind of think you're doing damage to it by it jostling around under the seat. So you can't just stop I can't just stop at a cafe and fill it up, and that would take 4 hours anyway. And equally, if you're travelling with a group, as I've done, you run out of petrol, but one person's got fuel in the bike, you find an old bottle of pop, you empty some fuel out, you put it from one bike to another, you're back on the road again in minutes. And obviously the issue with petrol is all those elements go out the window. You've got far less in reserve. I'm just going to whack it into sport mode. Sport mode is actually bloody scary. There we go through. Oh, it's up. There we go. Alright, sport mode. Well, I mean, that would cost me 6%, but I tell you what, it's ballistic, but it's also very easy to ride it at that kind of speed. The suspension is far better than what I'm used to. It's clearly high-end suspension and very well tuned to this bike. Obviously the lack of weight on the bike greatly adds the efficiency of the suspension, but its ability to absorb bumps along there was quite ridiculous, actually. I come down this track a lot. I know it's rough and stony. All the bikes, you have to ride around it a little bit, This is really just it breezes over it. It breezes over it with absolutely no issue at all. There's strength on the throttle. There's good feel on the throttle, good surge on the throttle. I think for what it is, it's as good as you would ever expect it to be. I don't think you could ask many more questions of it, or ask for more from it on a terrain like this. You know, that was easy. That was easy and fun. It's absolutely mental. I've got to be honest, it's absolutely mental. Okay, so just been for a ride on the Sur Ron. Just stopped by our local bike shop, Islands in Barnstable, who I knew had got this 300L in, and I just wanted to put it side to side to the Sur Ron, just to look at them, you know, size-wise. I mean, it's clear that the 300L is a bigger bike. Weight-wise, it's also about nearly twice as heavy. One sort of 60, 165 versus a claimed 89. So a big difference in weight. And I think the relevance here, having now ridden this, is that for me, this is, I didn't know what this was when I bought it, to be honest. I wasn't sure whether it was a performance enduro, whether it was a travel bike, trail bike, or what. But I think clearly, having ridden it now, it's a very easy, light, manageable trail bike. If you're somebody who's not got a lot of experience, who's not going to do big distances on trails, who wants to ride it for sort of 2 hours, 3 hours on a Sunday morning, this is far easier to ride than this is. Like weight-wise, seat height wise, even just everything about it is really easy to ride. I think for me actually where it struggles most is on the technical tricky stuff where you haven't got that clutch, so you can't play with the traction point and you can't gain traction. It's all sort of, as soon as it starts to spin, it just keeps on spinning, so you have to get off and push it. So in some ways I'd say this has got a higher threshold for technical trails than that, simply because you've got the clutch and you can feel your way up and sort of work it. You haven't got any of the finesse on that on the Sur Ron. What you have got though is just that lower seat, lighter weight and more manageable. So actually what this bike's strength was when you were just pottering down lanes. You weren't in a rush, you weren't trying to set any records, but it was very novice friendly, more novice friendly than this is. So in a way a high threshold of ability for a traditional trail bike, but what this does is allow anybody who's never ridden trails to actually get down and enjoy trails without any of the worry of stalling it, clutch control, excess weight, excess seat height and all that other stuff. So I'm really surprised by this. Actually, what it is, as I say, is a novice friendly trail bike. The range is always going to be the issue. I mean, I've done sort of 30 miles on this and I'm already starting to look down at 40% of battery charge left. You could go out for all day, day after day on this and just obviously keep fueling it up. So there's a massive difference in capacity. This would take you around the world. This would barely take you to the next town and back. So there is massive improvements to be made in this technology, but the biggest takeaway for me is electric bikes, trail bikes, are actually really easy to ride. And if you've never been off-road before and you're just starting out and you weren't going to do big distances, I'd take this over this. So Drew, you're travelling on a CRF 300L.
Yep.
How are you finding it?
I love it, really good. I had a problem with my legs, so I can't manage a big bike anymore. I looked around everything and went for this without even a test ride, so I was nervous getting it, but it's been perfect for me. It's so manageable. I can take it down wee country lanes and back roads, which is where I'm at home, and it just works for me and it makes me look better than I am.
That's what we all like. Is it comfortable?
It is. There's a length of time that you can sit on that seat, especially. I mean, if you have to do long stretches on a main road, you are aware
start to feel
of
it,
it,
yeah.
but then it's not really what it's intended for.
No.
It's not what I normally do.
And you've not got a cover on it already. You've not got a sheepskin on there or anything, have you?
So you're not allowed to do that. Good old veganism stops me. I mean, in my younger days, I had a sheepskin on my XT600, but I can't have one on this. No, all I have to do is just stand up every now and again. So on the roads that I like, I can stand up on the pegs anytime I want, and then it's perfect.
So you're just saying about fuel range, that's the only...
Yeah, it's a wee... I mean, it's grand, but it's... If you want to do a really full day and you're somewhere where there's not too many fuel stations about, then...
Yeah.
You know, so
Do you carry spare fuel?
I'm probably going to change the tank.
Do you carry spare fuel?
I don't at the minute, but I've been close a couple of times now, so
Yeah.
it's not worth the anxiety of that.
And then all you've done is you put tractive suspension on just to, what was the benefit of changing out the suspension?
Two things. One, I found with the standard suspension, I'm not a fast rider at all, and I don't go on fast roads, but about, I think 3 times I had the back wheel step out on me on country roads with like a nasty change of surface mid-bend or a wee pothole or something, and I thought, no, I don't need that sort of thing. And the other issue was, because it's my left leg that's a problem, actually getting physically on and off the bike is, you know, so occasionally challenging for me.
Yeah.
And with the standard suspension, the seat height was great, but as soon as I put my foot down and the side stand down and then lifted my weight off the seat, the bike leapt up in the air, the side stand moved off to the left, and I was having to hop on my dodgy leg, and it was a great comedic moment for the, you know, the assembled throng, but it wasn't great for me.
So the tractive just makes it a more constant height, does it?
Oh yeah, it's just super. Apparently I've got level 1 front and rear. I did the forks and the shock, and I got their matching side stand.
Yeah.
And I mean, to ride on the sort of roads I ride on, it transformed it. It just gives me so much more confidence in the bike, but it's also dead easy for me to get on and off now.
Perfect.
So, no, totally in favour of it.
All right, thanks, mate.
Lovely.
Okay, quick little review here on the Shad TR40 soft panniers or hybrid panniers that are fitted to the Motor Marine Escape for the Ireland trip. I just wanted to tell you what I thought of them. I paid about $360 for them, I think $370. They were on offer down from $460, which is the RRP. I fitted them to the Shad frames that I'd bought before. I'd had bad experience with the Adventure Spec panniers because I'd been careless and melted them, melted the bag on the exhaust. So I like the idea of this hybrid system because that fixed mounting plate means that every time you put this pannier on, it goes in exactly the same place. So if you're a bit careless like me, or in a rush in the morning, or distracted, it means that as soon as your pannier's gone on, you don't have to worry about it catching on the exhaust and melting. I heard quite a harrowing story the other day. Actually, a friend of one of the riders, he died on a motorcycle when his waterproof trousers fell down the back and caught in his wheel and threw him off, and he broke his neck. So when it comes to tether, not a great start to a segment, but when it comes to strapping down items to go on the back of your bike, it is so crucial that you do it right. And I'm guilty as anyone of doing it wrong and being careless. So yeah, I think it's really crucial that however you're strapping things down, when you set off on your in the morning, when you leave your campsite or whatever, everything is properly tethered down. So yes, I like the idea of this fixed rack. What I'm probably not as keen on is the soft pannier itself. It's not bad, it's pretty spacious, it looks good and it's functional. The problem really is with the clasps. I get the impression, like a lot of motorcycling products actually, that it was designed by somebody who doesn't ride a motorcycle, or certainly doesn't ride it in the environments in which the motorcycle equipment is going to be used, i.e. on a longer trip. So what they've done here, they've gone, right, it's got to be sort of 32 litres metric volume size, and that's what we're going to sell it as, a 32 litre pannier. And so they probably took like 32 litres worth of Tupperware boxes and stacked it in and gone, right, that's how big it is. It's a nice square container. The reality is when you're travelling, you might have a sleeping bag, you might buy a blanket, you might buy a jumper because it's cold. And so really what you need is a lot of spare pudding in this top end to allow you to bulk it out, you know, even though you're not adding a lot of weight, you're adding a lot of bulk with a jumper or a blanket, and still be able to fasten your straps. Whoever designed this, I think, assumed that everyone would have a neat little bag and be able to get these in. But these were so mounted that there was no slack in it. And equally, when you've got a dry bag across the back, they're very difficult to get into the slot. If I can turn it round and hopefully show you. So they come over the top and then they hook into there, and the other one hooks across there, and then they're lockable, and it pulls up a little pin to stop this sliding it out. I mean, it's a great feature. People like lockable panniers. The slight issue is that you can only get your key out once it's locked, so you can't leave your panniers unlocked, which I would probably choose to do for convenience. You have to lock it, take the key out every time, and sometimes if you don't get it quite set right, it won't slide out. And then equally, when it's full of stuff, it's very difficult to get the clasp in. And actually, I had to, the strap is sort of tethered again midway up here, and I had to cut that to give me more flex or more stretch to get it over. So it's a decent pannier. There's nothing really wrong with the pannier bar the clasping system, and I think it's been born out of the fact that they've been trying to make it lockable, and I think in pursuit of that they kind of ruined the product, which is a bit of a shame, because two simple clasp straps here with enough stretch in it or enough give in it to allow you to bulk it up, that would have done the job. And then almost one of those suitcase lockable straps they could have offered with it that you could put around it if you did want to lock it. To me, that would have been a simpler, more easy to use solution rather than going down this faffy old route, which I've got to be honest, it did put me off opening and closing the thing because I knew I'd have an issue doing so. And the shame is that the actual back plate works really well. The back plate is brilliant. I think another downside is that, you know, it's a 450 odd quid rated product, but we've still got non-waterproof outer, and you've got to use a waterproof liner, which do come with it, granted, but you would think in this day and age, with the number of materials available, they would be able to use a fabric that was waterproof and, you know, still sturdy and tough, and getting rid of the need for the removable liner that robs space and just causes, you know, it's something else to roll up and faff with. Two panniers on the Irish trip that did stand out to me, and if I was shopping again, there's probably two directions you could go in. There was somebody there with the Lomo panniers. Now, the Lomo panniers, for anybody who's not been aware, Lomo build or make surf wear, so wetsuits, dry bags, rubber shoes for surfing, etc. Then a few years ago they got into motorcycle gear and they used their dry bag technology to build side panniers, and they built a set for about 60-70 quid, which have got loads of space. They throw over the top and they sit there, and for 70 quid they're absolutely fantastic quality, and you can't fault the value. There was somebody with those who was completely happy, and then at the other end there was Katie, who'd got the Moscow Moto set up on her GS1200, which were about £1,000 to buy, but looked to be one of the most well-designed, most well-built products for a motorcycle I've seen. So you've got two ends of the market. You've got the premium end, which seems to be doing a great job of building a great product, and then the budget end, the Lomo, which seems to be doing a great job of offering a good product at a good price. And then in the middle, you've kind of got this sort of stuff, which is, it's neither cheap nor good. And you can't help but feel a little bit like, well, is that really, have I got 460 quid's worth of product there, a bit of a plastic black back plate and some, you know, satchel material with a waterproof liner? I don't really think I have. If it had been well designed, I'd probably feel a bit better about it. But as it is, it's about a 6 out of 10 product. It would suit somebody who does like to pack neat, who maybe is just going away for a night or two, and who is probably not going to be sleeping in a tent and having sleeping bags and things like that. So there is a market for this, but also there's a big area of improvement, because with a bit of adjustment, with longer straps and different tethering, this could be it could be a really decent pannier. Just as it is, well, it's so-so. Cheers. Okay, last thing for this week, I've got the BMW G310GS. So this bike has been on my fleet of A2 bikes for people to come down and ride back to back against the CRF 300, the Himalayan, the KTM 390 Adventure. And it was those bikes that MCN brought down to test and put up a video this week and feature in the magazine. So they knew I was quite heavily involved in this sector of the market, hence why they came down, and I was one of the test riders on their 4-piece test. I think it's fair to say the 310GS came in for a lot of criticism from the journalists, from the three riders who came down, and in this week's issue they gave it 2 out of 5 stars. In fairness, I don't think they really liked any of the bikes. The Himalayan, the KTM and the CRF all got 3 out of 5 stars. I think the sort of closing remarks were that none of them were great bikes. They're all quite severely flawed or significantly flawed for you therefore to think, well, I'll just get a mid-sized bike or get a bike with more technology or more gadgets, etc. I think kind of missing the point of the appeal of these bikes, i.e. they're lighter, lower, more manageable, cheaper to buy, therefore there's less at risk for people who are wanting to get a bike to actually go out and use. So I think they kind of missed the point of miss the benefits of these bikes over, say, in this case, an F700 or an
F850 GS, which would be heavier and taller and more expensive and more intimidating for those people who did want to try the hands at off-roading. Whereas I think the 310 GS, no, it's not a perfect bike, but it feels a far more manageable proposition for people wanting to go off-road. So I don't think it was quite a fair result of it, 2 out of 5. I think where the GS falls down is that when it's under the environment or the conditions of testing, i.e. you're trying to extract the best out of it, the best performance and everything else, it sort of hasn't got it in those higher realms. Where it has got it is where you're on an easy travelling pace, you're in no rush, you're just enjoying the soft suspension and the light, easy to use engine, and then therefore it works quite nicely. And in fact, when you're travelling, you're riding at 5/10, you're never riding at 10/10 when you're travelling. So I think the environment, the conditions for the test were probably not in favour of the GS310. So somebody messaged me, a chap named Paul messaged me a week or two ago, said, oh, I'm taking off some Rally Raid kit, would you be interested? And I think definitely the suspension was a big bonus point. You know, to improve the suspension means that you can push on harder and the bike will respond better and allow you to ride quicker and with more confidence. So yes, the suspension, the Rally Raid Tractive Level 2 suspension was a no-brainer. And then he said, I've got wheels as well. So how can you can look a gift horse in the mouth, especially when the wheels have been unavailable for a year or so. I've just picked them up this morning, a set of tubeless, spoked, stainless steel, tubeless rims. Also a set of Renthal fat bars, a Scorpion exhaust, a better shield, and some risers. So I think fundamentally, I use that word frequently, but there was always more potential in the 310 GS than BMW sort of gave it credit for or gave it space to occupy. I don't think they wanted to see this bike as in any way a premium adventure bike or a premium small capacity adventure bike, which is why they stripped it of the spoke wheels and put on the budget suspension. What the Rally Raid kit does, and I know John and Adam at Rally Raid, and they've been friends for a long time, and I've ridden the bikes that they built, and they are transformative in what they do. You know, the fact I bought my own stuff hopefully means it's not a sales pitch, but I know it works. I've ridden a 310 GS with the aftermarket parts, certainly the suspension, and it does transform what you can do with the bike and the pace that you can carry on and off-road. I think the spoke rims are just for vanity. I don't think there's any great benefit there. I think you'd have to be riding like an absolute lunatic to crack the cast aluminium rims of the standard bike, but what these do is add a bit of curb appeal. Suspension adds performance, and then the taller screen and the Renthal bars, again, just increase durability. So it turns it into the bike that BMW probably should have built, but realised there wasn't a market for because the price would have been too high, so they diluted it a little bit. Yes, for all the parts, you're probably looking in the best region of £3.5 grand, £4 grand. The suspension's 1,200, the wheels are 1,200, and then if you added in the exhaust and the sump guard and the riser, you're probably looking at, yeah, £3.5 grand. Is that worth doing to a brand new £5,800 GS310? It's probably not. You know, a £9,000 310 GS is probably a little bit too peaky, even for the most ardent of fans. But if you fit this to a second-hand 310 GS, if you get one with a black engine, which means it's a Euro 5, which means it's got a better low-end pickup and less stallability, then you can pick up a bike for, say, 384, bolt start with the suspension. So for less than £5,000, you've got a really set up, capable, small capacity bike. So it's an option to going out there and just buying a brand new bike. For me, what the 310 GS does better than, say, the KTM 390, which is probably its most closest rival in this category, is it's got a better standing position. The bike feels as though it was designed from the outset to be stood up, whereas the KTM 390 feels like you're quite hunched over and never naturally standing, which for long distance off-road stood up riding is never so good. Also, it's got no traction control, so you don't get that nannying intrusion that you get with the 390 KTM. So over the next week or so, I'll get that kit fitted and then do an updated review of the 310 GS just to see if it does transform the bike and what the bike is then capable of, and therefore, how does it then compete with, say, a stock 390 KTM Adventure? And how interestingly does it compete with the new Vosges 300 Rally, which interestingly, after the ABR event this weekend, MotoGB, the importer, are going to drop me one off, and I'm going to have I'm not sure how many weeks I'll have it, but a long enough period, hopefully, to do some assessment. So, yeah, the 310 GS, it's a great mid-level bike.
the Rally Raid kit elevates it. So it'll be interesting to see A, what it looks like, and B, how it rides. So that's the end of this week. Next episode will be all about ABR and people who are there. And then week after that, we'll do some testing on the bikes and do a bit more workshop stuff. So yeah, hope that's of interest. 310GS with some snazzy gold wheels. What more could Santa deliver you for Christmas? So, right, cheers.